it can be tough. It's not only tough on you, it's tough on your family as well. And then that can also put more strain on the golf course. I mean,
Sure.
Burnout's a big thing in the business.
Welcome to Fairways, Friends, and Fresh Ideas. Today's guest is someone who's been part of my story. Back in 2009, Brannon Goodrich with the Dallas National Golf Club took a leap of faith with ezLocator. Dallas National Golf Club became our very first customer. Brannon, it's great to have you here.
Thanks, John. It's good to be here. Glad to be back in Dallas.
Well, let's kind of reminisce a little bit. Let's go back to 2009.
Oh, boy.
Tell me what's going through your head the very first time we met.
Oh, probably a lot. Being at, at Dallas National, we were a very progressive club, always had a lot going on. We weren't the largest team either. So it was myself and David Denley, Neil Packard, and we were kind of, all had our hands in a little bit of everything. So when a club's growing like that, we needed trustful partners. We might not have always kind of had that being a new club. We had a lot of people trying to kind of get our business, I guess I would say. I know ezLocator kind of wanting to help superintendents have a better process on selecting hole locations. We think that we're going to take members' complaints away, where we're always kind of optimistic that's going to happen. But I will say I think it was something that was very much needed in the business. A little skeptical at first just because I am relying on someone to go out and set the whole location, and I know that it has to be precise for the software to work. But I think that like over the years, incorporating a lot of the updates really changed the game for superintendents and, for ezLocator, just not only for good hole locations, but it's been a great training tool as well for the employees that are changing the holes on a daily basis. Getting everybody to buy into it has been a good thing as well. So, definitely a little skeptical at first. I know how difficult the greens were at Dallas National to manage, and you can easily be on the wrong side of the hole there and maybe be a little frustrated. So maybe a little optimistic, thinking that ezLocator was going to solve those problems. But I definitely think it made us alleviate those problems greatly just over the years, and learning the software and making everything a lot more consistent. Let's face it, consistency from green to green, from, day to day is kind of what we're after in the golf business. And I think ezLocator streamlined that whole location process for us. So we are more consistent. We do deliver a better product, and, it allows us to go focus on other things that, may be more pressing at the time. It's been great to be able to rely on the software. It's been great to be able to look back over time and see where the holes have been, see if we need to change things from year to year, maybe going into tournaments or certain seasons. It's fun too at airification times when you just don't have to worry about the green speeds. You just put them wherever you want. But no, I know it came in at Dallas National, and then it quickly evolved into something really special, I would think, when the templates came out and the green scans, and we were incorporating slope with green speeds and where hole location needs to be. I mean, to me, that was the real big game changer there, for sure.
Well, I felt like I was a duck swimming on the water. I was paddling really hard underneath, and I was trying to find any customer that I could find. And I was just ecstatic when, meeting with you and David Denley. And, David was excited because I think it gave a new, fresh look for Dallas National, because I know it's an upscale club and wanted to present the very best out there. From a superintendent's perspective, and I remember the meeting vividly like it was yesterday. And we're in this big boardroom, and there was myself, David Denley, and another friend of ours that was in the meeting, and you didn't say much. And I've always wondered today, what were you thinking? Were you thinking, here's another sales guy with snake oil? And David is all excited. And were you saying, oh, okay, I'll give it a try, but probably it's going to be like every other guy that came in. We'll try it, and it'll end up on the shelf as a monument.
Yeah, definitely. A little worried about it, knowing that, maybe it did come from the 19th hole of a good club, where a lot of superintendents' problems are created in the 19th hole. Their
Mhm.
problems don't get solved. So I was a little skeptical of that, I'm going to have a software in here that's going to make all my problems go away. And I know David liked it. We were a, high-end progressive club and always about the experience from the time you hit the gate to the time you leave. We were a little out of date with our whole location process and presentation. So that was really probably the biggest sticker appeal that we saw. And then, of course, after that, it was turned over to me to get out in the field and make it work and learn about it. Get into not only the daily selection, but making sure the staff was buying in and doing the proper way of pacing the green off and that sort of thing, because not everybody's pace is the same. So you
Right.
only got to get them out there and train them that way. So I was probably a little skeptical of that. There's no telling what else I had going on at the time. Um, but I know that early on, I mean, two or three updates, and it seemed like, we were off to the races, or you were, I think going back to you saying you were a duck swimming in the water. Well, yeah, they're definitely. I mean, most softwares or things that are in the golf business probably came from someone else in the golf business, where you were bringing your experience and expertise in the computer world, and digital platforms into, something applicable for superintendents. And I quickly saw, the results in it. I knew it allowed us to spread the wear and tear out on our greens better. The presentation, like I said, was fantastic, and a lot of the problems did somewhat go away because we were better educated and we were able to train the staff better. Because there were a lot of times where you have to say, "Yeah, I might have missed that one. You're right."
Mm.
And fast forward, 10 years later at Carmel Country Club, um, we used it a lot there as just education for green committees and things like that. Because I mean, when green speeds get up to 12 or 13, like we were pushing, our whole location percentage dropped drastically. Um, so that's good education to the members. We found that we might not need to roll those greens as much. They have a lot of slope to them. Let's try not to make them run in 13 to where there's not a pinnable hole location.
That's quite interesting because I've seen that over the years. We started out as a startup. We didn't have a lot of the technology we have today to basically set up a new customer. And what we found is that the superintendent is challenged with meeting the golfer's expectations of fast greens, and they're having to basically try to do that with a green that may be 20 or 30 years old that we can't accommodate these green speeds of 12 or 13. How does the superintendent manage that effectively? Because you got expectations on one end, and you got the realist aspect of, "Hey, I've got something that I would like to make it, pleasing to them, but it's really, really putting a stressful life on our staff and everybody around." How do superintendents manage that today?
Well, I think it's difficult just because the expectations are constantly increasing. You got a lot of great players in the game these days that are perfectionists, and then due to COVID, I mean, rounds of golf are up. I mean, there's more and more people coming to golf every day. So, I mean, I see it a lot as an educational piece as well, because everybody wants their greens running 14. Everybody wants to make a lot of birdies. So it allows you to be able to give them some proof, where before it's just you standing there, and let's face it, after time, they get tired of hearing what you have to say. So if you've got some substantial backup there, you can help prove it. So I know, you know, we have two or three green, or Carmel has two or three greens. And, when the green speeds get up over 11, there's only three or four hole locations.
Mm.
And if you play golf on the weekends, that's the only time you ever play golf. You're playing that hole location a lot. And we heard that over and over and over and over,
Yeah.
and kept, you know, showing it. We did communication pieces on it, and it pretty much boiled down to, okay, well, one, you either let the greens be that fast and you deal with hole locations, or you slow the green down a little bit, or you blow it up and you start over. So,
And that's such an expensive proposition to have to blow it up and start over.
no, it's pretty much yeah, it's a very expensive proposition. a lot of clubs, it's a no-go because you're shutting the golf course down for a certain period of time, and, you know, you're not always out there making the golf course easier,
Right.
where if you go you might go make some holes a little too easy if you wanted to go just blow them up every time,
Sure.
you know, somebody doesn't like a hole location or something.
Well, I've always been kind of curious. We as players want faster green speeds, but really, is that for the betterment of the game? Does that really basically help everything out, or is this something that we all talk about Monday morning around the water cooler, saying, "Hey, my green speeds were 13 over the weekend, and how many four putts did you have for the weekend, or whatever?" Help me understand, how did that evolve? In 1975 or 77. Augusta National was 7.5. Oakmont was 9, almost 10. And then, PGA Tour in 1990 was about 9.5. Now we're talking 12 or 13, and I understand why they do it at the tour level. Why has that evolved to the club level, or the daily fee level?
Well, I think it, kind of goes back to competition and beating your chest. Everybody loves member guest week at every club. I mean, you're never going to go to a club, or you should never go to a club where you don't have the best conditions for your member guest. Now,
Mhm.
those conditions are not necessarily for every golfer year round, but that's what a lot of the high end golfers want. Um, I think superintendents have done a very good job over the years producing those speeds. I mean, you know, we're kind of probably our worst enemy at times because we are always trying to get better and get faster, whether it's in firmness or speed or smoothness. And the technology's allowed us to do that just with the mowers. We used to mow with 11 blade reels. Now a lot of us use 14 blades just for a more precise cut. The height the cut on greens goes lower and lower. And depending on the variety of grass you have, whether it's bent grass or Bermuda as well, Bermuda grass can be a challenge through the winter to maintain a playable speed. I would probably say that, the 13 range isn't playable for most golfers, even though they want them that fast. Because I know the next thing they'll talk about is pace of play. Well, all that goes together. And I know superintendents love pushing the envelope. Let's put it that way.
Sure. Mhm.
But that's how you get better, and I mean that's just what makes the golf industry so special.
Yeah. So in the last 15 years, ezLocator has evolved from where it was when you were our first customer, where we're actually putting beer coasters on the green to
Yeah,
figure out where the holes are. And I have some old footage of you and some of your staff members pacing things off. And then we introduced scanning technology to make that setup go easier. We started out as a standalone device, and I think I've talked with Neil Packard, one of your staff members. He said, "Oh yeah, I remember we had to print it out, save it as a PDF, email that to the golf shop on the early days." Help me understand how ezLocator over the years has evolved to kind of help make life easier for you. And not only at Dallas National, but at Carmel Country Club. How do you see that could help out? And what do we need to be doing better in the future?
well, I remember that out on the golf course picking the hole locations more than I remember the first meeting in the office. I was always the outdoor guy. Um, it was very time consuming when we went out there and did that day. And again, it was all based on us pacing everything off.
Hmm.
I mean, it was only going to be as good as we were stepping things off, and it was a tough day. I mean, you know, number
The
one was
coasters
probably
were
better than
flying
18.
everywhere.
Yeah, they were
Yeah.
everywhere. We were just tossing them in the wind, and if they land, we're like, all right, yeah, that's a good whole location. And then I know the very first time we did the green scan and the setup, I'm like, all right, this is where it's at here, because now we're getting into precision,
Right.
and we can see it on the computer, and we can help our other team members get out there if there's a bad place that we don't want to use, or if they made a mistake. I mean, there's a lot of times a guy makes a mistake, and not everybody likes to admit the mistakes. A lot of guys want to debate the mistake, but you kind of go out there and use the scans and show
Mhm.
them. I think Neil's right. Neil was the one that had to scan everything and probably send it off to the golf shop. Um, and nowadays, I mean, now the golf shop just logs in and there it is.
Mhm.
And I know at Carmel, they take it and run with it. I mean, we select the holes and we leave it to them. I mean, most of the time it's just the standard Carmel Country Club hole location sheet on the golf cart, but a lot of times due to the features of the presentation, I mean, and you can change that, whether it's the color. A lot of clubs have colors that they use, and they don't use any other colors. You can use that.
Mhm.
And you can put some little emojis in there if you want, or have a big golf tournament for the ladies. I mean,
Mhm.
change that up if you want. So it's not just the black and white printed thing anymore these days. And I think that's been great for the golfer and for the golf shop.
Right.
And hey, like I said, some things are about presentation, and things may be better on the golf course just because they like
Yeah.
the whole location sheet they're looking up at.
Well, let's digress a little bit from ezLocator, and let's talk about, you know, being a director of grounds or superintendent or whatever. And I view you guys as the CEO of a specific group. And what are the challenges that you find in trying to basically manage a team of diverse, backgrounds, diverse abilities? How do you see technology merging into that? But more importantly, the communication styles. What kind of tidbits can you offer that kind of says, "Hey, this has always worked for me, and maybe this might work for somebody else." So,
Well, I think the industry's changed a lot over the years. The pressure put on superintendents are probably higher than ever. Not only in expectations, but the financial side of things. The labor market's very, very difficult these days. I mean, there can be a lot of turnover amongst people. So I, you know, the more technology that comes out, I think it streamlines our business better. It allows the superintendent, to be able to use a software like ezLocator, or maybe they're into GPS technology spraying, or, drones are becoming a big thing these days, and autonomous mowing is a big thing as well. So, let's face it, life's tough on these days. And I mean, and team members have things that come up in life, and people get vacations and they need weekends off. And, the golf courses never stop. I mean, just some think it's Sunday and, every blade of grass needs to be cut. Well, that's not feasibly possible on a very large property. And the demand on golf these days is more and more. I mean, I remember the days of being able to go out and actually do things during play. That becomes very, very difficult these days. I mean, clubs will do gap maintenance to where they allow the maintenance staff an hour or so in the middle of the day to get out there and have extra time, where a lot of times there's not. So all the different technologies out there has just allowed us to do our job better. We don't necessarily have to focus as much on maybe whole locations, or even if you're into GPS spraying now, I mean, just about anybody can go do that. So a lot of the technologies, it's helped in a way simplify our business to where we can go um, attend the board meeting, or we can be handling this employee issue, or maybe we want a day off, or something like that. But I think all the technology these days is going that direction, and the precision's gotten very, 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 very good.
Well, I've always kind of looked at you as somebody that evaluates technology and looks at the benefits, and then you may not be the early adopter like you were with ezLocator, but you may be a progressive person to say, okay, it's the time is right. And with all kinds of technology being introduced today, talked about, we have AI, we have autonomous mowers, we have GPS technology. There's a fear factor that you hear about, that employees are going to start losing their jobs and stuff like that. I have a different view. I think technology takes all that mundane routine work out of hand and allows the employees to basically expand their knowledge and expand what they want to do. Are you seeing the same thing? Did you see the same thing at Dallas National and Carmel Country Club? Do you view that same thing where technology can enhance the employee's skill set and enhanced your ability to get the job done in a timely manner?
Yeah, I think kind of depends on the generation. The younger generation, they're all into it. It's cool. I mean, even the members, they think it's just super cool that there's an autonomous mower out there, are mowing. Now some of the older guys, maybe not, but that kind of can be your demise in the golf business, being a little complacent. I think if you're not proactive every year trying to improve something,
Mhm.
it can definitely pass you by. I think some of the technology also, from a staff standpoint, is safety as well. I know some of the new autonomous mowing um, mowers, they can mow a slope now that you could never mow before. And you had to put a staff member in a dangerous situation to cut that slope. Well, not necessarily anymore.
Mhm.
Um, and to me, with some of the autonomous mowing, it has a big benefit. You know, when the team needs to rest, or when you get in a big weather event and you
Right.
can't mow, particularly in rough situations. Charlotte, North Carolina, it can rain a lot in June and July, and this summer it rained 3 straight weeks, and you couldn't even hardly cut rough.
Mm.
Where if you had some of the autonomous mowers, they would be out cutting for you. The second it stopped raining, you could send them out.
Mm.
Um, they could be mowing in the evening when you're not. So I think that all those tools, just in terms of technology, allows a superintendent just to do a better job, and in end result, that's going to give a better product to the golfer.
Mhm. Okay. So what do you see on the horizon for the golf industry? I think, since COVID, there's been a lot of interest, a lot of people coming into the business, a lot of people, playing golf. We have, off course activities such as Top Golf. What is your crystal ball telling you?
Um, yeah, you're right. It has really, increased, I would say, greatly since COVID. I know when I started Carmel 11 years ago, we were doing 50,000 rounds a year, and now they're doing 65.
Oh, wow.
So that put a lot of pressure on us. Um, so really, and then going back to the finding team members and reducing turnover and things like that. All the technology's taken a lot of the human error out of it,
Mhm.
and made things a lot more consistent for
Mhm.
us.
Mhm.
I don't think you can totally rely on the technology because power goes out, we might be in trouble. But I do think I, I can see the, the GPS spraying increasing dramatically on courses. Definitely the autonomous mowing. Can't wait to see what's next for ezLocator. And I think that's kind of the direction it'll be going. Now, will it ever replace staff? No. And that's where the superintendent will have to, be a good salesman. Like we were telling our guys, that these things are not here to take your job. Doesn't
Mhm.
matter what it is, whether it's ezLocator, a drone, or what. I mean, we still have to have you. These are just things here to help us do our job better. You know, maybe the guy was off work this week that you always like, spraying or mowing
Right.
rough or changing holes. You may not have to worry about that as much.
Mm.
So I just, I've always loved the technology. I hadn't always been maybe the first to dive in. I know I was with ezLocator, and should have bought in instead of buying, instead of just putting it there at the club. But I definitely will be very curious to see where technology continues to go in the next 10 years, because I was very optimistic on a lot of it. Maybe even crashed and burned on some
Mhm.
things previously.
Mhm.
But it is in a way frightening the way some of the technology is with computers and AI these
Sure.
days. But it's just all there to make us do a better job and deliver a better product to our
Mhm.
end user.
Yeah. So you've had plenty of experience working at Dallas National Carmel Country Club. And what would you tell today? What would you tell your younger self going back? When you first started getting into the business at Bentry Country Club, and then Dallas Country Club, and then Dallas National. What lessons have you learned? From all aspects of it, whether it be life or whether it be the golf course, or what would you tell your younger self today?
Slow down a little bit. It's not life or death.
Mm-hmm.
Take a day off here or there. We can easily get sucked into the business. And how great technology is, it could also be our worst enemy with cell phones and emails as well.
Mm-hmm.
It is kind of hard to turn things off these days. So I would have probably told myself, just, it's not brain surgery.
Right.
The golf course is going to be there the next day. And I know we crank a lot of hours out, and even more depending on what club you're at or what part of the country
Mhm,
you're at. It's just needing time to stop and smell the roses because it
mhm.
doesn't seem like it was. Seems like it was 2 or 3 years ago that you and I were probably starting this when I or you were starting this, and I was, implementing it. Because time does go by fast. And I would say I know I always liked the technology, but maybe even be a little more progressive with it. I had 8 autonomous mowers at Carmel and probably could have had 80 like some of my competition.
Sure.
Um, it just depends on how much you wanna dive in the deep end or if you wanna just kinda go in the shallow end first.
Mhm.
But I definitely think it's headed that direction.
Right. So, one of the challenges in the golf industry, whether you're a golf professional or on the ground staff or being a director of grounds or something like that, one of the challenges is mobility, and I always felt like, selling a new idea like ezLocator was like pushing the rope up the hill. We would find champions like yourself, and that person basically had the confidence in their ability to make a decision and recognize whether or not that solution would work or not, and be able to defend it if it didn't work and move on. I find that a lot of in particular people on the ground staff or superintendents are fearful of making a decision for fear that they may lose their job because of that. I think that's pretty prevalent in the industry. How does the industry change to basically say, "It's okay to make a mistake"? That's what I tell my staff. I said, "It's okay to make a mistake. Try not to
Mm.
make it twice. Learn from that mistake, because if we're not making mistakes, we're not doing anything. We all make mistakes." So how does the golf industry try to change that philosophy? Because I recognize the mobility. If you're a superintendent in Dallas and you lose it at a high profile club or any club, and then you lose your position for any reason, where do you have to go? In most cases, you have to uproot and go to a different city or a different state. How do you basically, you know, educate the market, educate the industry that we do a good job and we do make mistakes. Mother Nature is hard to deal with. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, it is a very tough industry, I would say. I mean, everybody that plays golf probably has a home loan, and they think just because they grow grass, we ought to be able to. I don't think a lot of people understand, the pressures that bent grass is up against in Dallas, Texas, or even, Charlotte, North Carolina, for that matter.
Mm,
With going back to newer golfers coming into the business, they don't know. They don't care what kind of grass they play on. They just want to play. Normally, they want the greens as fast as possible, whether that's for the betterment of the club or not.
mhm.
You never know.
Well, it's an interesting challenge. It's
Yeah, I
an
mean,
interesting challenge you know, I was pretty much in the technology space, and
mhm.
and and I could see a a multitude of opportunities, and I didn't have to move anywhere. The golf industry is a very small fraternity, could be considered a large industry by some characteristics, but I see that, a great person, great superintendent is doing all the right things, and something happens, and I remember early on with ezLocator, we had a club here in Dallas, and they just got through renovating the golf course. And next thing you know, the greens started failing off. And I was all nervous that they were going to blame ezLocator for the problem. And so I made a phone call. And they go, "Oh no, it's just infant mortality. We know that is ezLocator is doing that." You know, that stress and strain that the superintendents go under every day, that the conditions aren't perfect, this and that, decisions are being made, and for various reasons, that superintendent may be in or out because of that. Uh, you know, and again, it's a challenging world, and I feel like the industry sometimes is handcuffed because they don't, you know, they don't allow the superintendent to say, "Yeah, let's go try this. Let's push this." And you're also constrained from a budget standpoint. So that's what I'm trying to understand from your perspective. Are we on target on that, or is that something that you see? Is the world is changing, allowing superintendents to be more free to basically make decisions that they think are in the best interest of the club.
Yeah, I think, you know, sometimes superintendents can get stuck in what works, we're just going to do.
Mhm.
and we may not be as proactive in changing things as we would like to. I mean, we're like football coaches, so you're expected to win every single game. I mean, you're expected to hit every single budget. I mean, whether or not doesn't really matter.
Mhm.
So that can put a lot of pressure on superintendents. I think the biggest thing is communicating. Whether it's the weather, whether it's you, like you said, you've made a mistake, or the team's made a mistake, or you missed something in the budget. I mean, I've found that communication over the years has really, 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 really involved.
Mhm.
But at the same time, that puts pressures on superintendents because they're you know have Instagram accounts or blogs or.
Mhm.
I mean, I know that we were constantly writing communication pieces on whatever it may be, and taking you away from, what you would really like to be doing out on the golf course. But,
Mhm.
what you really got to remember is you better be communicating that first, whether it's with your team or, managing up with your managers and board members, committees, and then and members as well.
Mhm.
Being being visible out there, meeting and greeting people goes a long way.
Mhm.
It's not just we're farmers anymore and we go to work from daylight to dark.
Mhm.
Even though most of us would rather do that, than maybe go to a board meeting or have to attend this or that.
Sure.
Um, but I think that's kind of back to, superintendents need to be involved in the same as ezLocator has, or
Right.
some of the other technology. And if you don't, I mean, it's going to pass you by. And everybody's kind of keeping up with the Joneses at time. And if
Mhm.
somebody up the road or down the road's doing it and you're not, you might get asked why.
Mhm.
So that's, to me, that's where you need to constantly be progressing,
Mhm.
and communication normally is kind of key to that, I would say.
Sure. Well, we all need an outlet. So, you don't go home and basically say, "Okay, I'm gonna go grow grass in my backyard," you know, you know, what do you like to do when you're not we're not, at the golf course or managing people? What's your hobby?
I love playing golf, always have.
Okay.
Um, you know, love playing golf with members. I wish I played haven't played as much lately as I'd like to, but
Sure.
that's what happens when you're involved with construction projects and, 2 golf courses. I spent a lot of time with my daughters over the years,
Okay.
chasing a softball around or
Mm.
whatnot. And, now it's just kind of getting outdoors, doing whatever. Carolina has a lot to offer in terms of outdoors, fly fishing, hiking, things like that, getting the dog out, doing something,
Mhm.
you know. That's kind of probably my hobbies, getting into fishing a little bit.
Okay.
I kind of don't mind a little extra work either, like helping people out around their house, or if they got irrigation problems or things like that.
Mm.
So, that's kind of, where I would let my mind release a little bit, if it would, until another phone text or email or something like that. So it's difficult. The word work life balance has came out a lot more
Mhm.
in the last 5 years than it did when I was in the business. So,
Sure.
back to my young self a long time ago, that's what I would have probably told myself is, balance it, take a little bit more time. You never can get that time back. Um, and it can be tough. It's not only tough on you, it's tough on your family
Mhm.
as well. And then that can also put more strain on the golf course. I mean,
Sure.
burnout's a big thing in the business. We all go through it. There's no doubt about it.
Mhm. Yeah. I've seen a lot of superintendents, actually leave because of that, because of the burnout, the stress and the strain, and managing this standpoint. And I've even talked to several superintendents that basically, you know, have mental issues because of that. And early on they didn't recognize that, but they didn't realize the pressures that they were going under because of what was being, maybe it was imposed or self-imposed or whatever it may be. So,
Yeah, I think it sneaks up on you. I think you don't pay much attention to that probably as you're building your career.
mhm.
Um, but then, the older you get, yeah, the more it definitely can come into play for sure. And it just there's so many things these days too that take you off the golf course that can, make people grow frustrated and things like that. But, that's just, you got to develop a well-trained team and a good staff. I mean, I know I had awesome staffs at Dallas National and Carmel, so I could really rely on them to do things for me and take the pressures off to be able to chase the softball around with my oldest daughter or hang out with the youngest, whatever it may be. Because you can easily talk yourself into getting up and going to work. It's kind of harder to be like, all right, I'm going to let it go today. Whatever happens, happens. I'll deal with it tomorrow. Because let's face it, we all get the calls that, the irrigation system had a leak or something, or it didn't run during the summer, and then you're up there babysitting that. So, and I think the club has to help support that as well. I mean, running a 25-year-old pump station on, 36-hole golf course might not be the smartest thing to be doing anymore these days. Band-Aids peel off and the wound gets bigger. The good clubs are very proactive in their capital spending, and they're staying ahead of the times. That allows them to keep evolving and not get behind on capital improvements and things like that, because it's getting more and more expensive to do anything these days. I mean, we feel that. I mean, ourselves, not just at work, but it'll be curious to see kind of where it goes in the next 10 years. I mean, I think that the technology will allow us to continue to do our jobs that well. But at the same time, our expectations ought to come down a little bit too. I mean, I know Walmart's open on Sunday and their lights are on and the shelves are stocked, but we're not cutting every blade of grass on Sunday. I mean, that's just all there is to it. So if that's the expectation, you've got the wrong expectation. Right. So you need to lower your expectations to, what we're able to provide as well. Cause it all goes into every time, members' dues go up, they think that hits the golf course maintenance budget. Well, that's the opposite of that, which nobody wants their bills going up or dues going up, but the cost of business is growing every day.
Right.
So it just puts that much more of a challenge on everyone in the golf business, not just superintendents, but, club managers and CEOs as well.